Hey everyone, and welcome back to Diablo Flamenco. In this video we're going to discuss the three most important beats in a flamenco 12-beat compás, where we as the guitarists have the most freedom to express ourselves. So let's jump right into the material. In this video we're going to discuss the term known as a falseta fill, or sometimes called a 7/8/9 phrase in a 12-beat compás. And we're going to apply this to a very basic soleá, so that way we can understand how to use this concept, as well as how can we change it to make it a little bit more interesting in terms of how we feel as the guitarist, as the composer of these phrases. So for example, a very simple phrase in soleá will sound like this. Alright, so what this is really is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's 7, 8, 9, this is what we call a 7/8/9 phrase, or as I mentioned earlier, sometimes we'll call it a little falseta fill. And what's interesting is I can play the exact same compás, but I can change beats 7, 8, 9, and all of a sudden I have what sounds like a new compás. So for example, instead of doing what I just did originally, I might do this instead. I might go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Notice that I kept everything else exactly the same. All I did was change beats 7, 8, 9. So as the guitarist, we have the freedom to change beats 7, 8, 9. And I'm going to teach you how to do these first two variations, and then I'm going to talk about how can we change up these phrases a little bit to make them sound a little more interesting. So let's talk about it. Keep in mind that I do have a cejilla or capo on the 4th fret of my guitar today, but you can think of all this material as if I didn't have a capo. So what we're going to do first is let's talk about beats 1, 2, and 3. All we need are 3 basic chords. First we need an E major chord, middle finger 2nd fret on A, ring finger 2nd fret on D, and pointer finger 1st fret on G. Everything else is open. And that's on our beat 1. Beat 2, all we're going to do is lift our ring finger off, and now all of a sudden we have an E7 chord. So far we have E and E7. Beat 3 is where the harmony changes in our 12-beat compás, and we're going to go to our flamenco style F chord. Remember, this isn't a bar chord F. We have our B and E strings, both are open, but we do have our pointer finger 1st fret on the 6th string, ring finger 3rd fret on the A string, pinky 3rd fret on the D string, and middle finger 2nd fret on G. Everything else are 2 open strings, and that's our flamenco F. So far we have E, E7, and flamenco F. And these are beats 1, 2, and 3 of our soleá compás. So we have 1, 2, 3. And for now, we're just grazing down with the thumb to play these chords. Continuing on from here, beats 4, 5, and 6, we're just going to keep very simple and do what's called a golpe. A golpe is a percussive tap in flamenco that helps keep a beat, or it might accentuate a certain beat. So what we're going to do here is we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just to keep our compás, make sure that we're always on time here. Now is where we have the fun stuff, the 7, 8, 9. And we're going to do 2 very basic ones, very traditional ones to start, and then I'll show you how we can kind of mix them up. And in future videos as well, I'm going to give you many more possible variations of the 7, 8, 9, and you'll have the freedom to pick which ones that you like. So the first one, the one that people usually learn first, is this one. And then our 10, 11, 12 phrase comes immediately right after it. That closes the compás. So for this 7, 8, 9, we have 2 chords. We have an F major 7 and a 2-finger version of E major. And we just switch back and forth between these. So let's start with the F major 7. This comes right on beat 7. We have ring finger, 3rd fret on D string, middle finger, 2nd fret on G for this note, and pointer finger, 1st fret on the B string for this note. And this is a 4-string chord, so I'm just going to place my thumb on the D string and just play those 4 strings by grazing down. So that's our F major 7. Then we're going to switch to this 2-finger version of E major, where my middle finger is 2nd fret on D, and my pointer finger is 1st fret on the G string. So all we have is the middle and index working here. And again, that's another 4-string chord, so planting our thumb on the D string, just grazing down. So we have 7, on 8 we go to the E major, on 9 we go back to F major 7, and that's the phrase. So we have 7, 8, and 9. Beats 10, 11, 12. We're going to go back to our 2-finger version of E, and we're going to do what's called the remate, and that's where we have this little picking pattern here of 10, 11, 12, and. So what I'm doing here is I'm just letting my right hand do the work while I hold on to this 2-finger E chord. So first we pick the open 6th string with the thumb, the open 1st string with the index, and then my thumb is going to jump down to the D string. We're going to play the D string, G string, B string, and E string again with the index at the end. And that's 10, 11, 12, and. So if we combine everything, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, F major 7, to E, to F, remate 10, 11, 12, and. That is usually the first compás of soleá that new flamenco guitarists will learn. So now, once you get that, let's talk about the second 7, 8, 9 phrase. So if we keep everything the same, beats 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 10, 11, 12, all we're going to do is change our 7, 8, 9 to a new phrase. In this phrase, we have this. And it's actually pretty easy. If you build your F major 7 chord that we just talked about, we're going to slide this whole shape. So now our pointer finger is on the 3rd fret, our middle finger is on the 4th fret, and our ring finger is on the 5th fret. We're going to strum this chord, move the whole shape down 1 fret, move it back again, we're back to F major 7, and then our 10, 11, 12 is the same. So we have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. If we combine it with everything else we've done before, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So now we have 2 different 7, 8, 9 phrases with very little material. Now you have 2 different compasses of soleá. So if we play both of those compasses back to back, we have something that sounds like this. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, F to E, back to F, 11, 12, and second one, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I want you to get used to playing both of those first, getting them under your fingers, becoming very smooth. But what if we want to change these up a little bit? Because as you can hear from what I'm doing right now, it's not the most interesting thing we could probably do. So how can we change up a very basic 7, 8, 9 phrase and make it more interesting? So to me, there's a couple things we can do. The first thing, we can syncopate, or we can change the rhythm entirely, or the final one, can we change the technique of how we play this phrase? So we're going to do a couple very simple ideas, and then you can go on a tangent and be very crazy with these, get very creative, and see what you come up with these 7, 8, 9 phrases. So let's take the first variation, for example. The first one we did was this, the 7, 8, 9 to 10, 11, 12. So the first idea I mentioned was to syncopate. So what we could do, instead of going 7, 8, 9, a very common thing to do is to go 7, 8, 9. So what am I doing here? To help keep track of where you're at, you can do a golpe right on the downbeat of 7. So we go 7, so golpe and then down on the F major 7 chord that we did. 7, 8. So it's a quicker switch here between these two chords. We go back to that E. So 7, 8, then 9, we go back to F. Everything else is exactly the same. The same chords are all within the right beats of our compás, but we're adding that golpe right on the downbeat of 7. So that way we have some syncopation on the 7 and where we strum this chord. 7, 8, 9. 7, 8, 9. So that's one idea. You can do the same idea on the second variation. 7, 8, 9. And it just makes the rhythm sound a little funkier, not as straight as it was originally. The second idea is to just change the rhythm entirely. Instead of these being basically quarter notes, right? 7, 8, 9, 1 per beat. What if we change it up? What if I slow down my thumb picks to make it sound a little more spread? For example, like that. So like a 16th note, right? 7 and a 80 and a 90 and a. I'm just taking my thumb and playing D string, G string, D string, E string in a row. Switch, switch. Sounds a little more melodic, right? Instead of just going 7, 8, 9. Or another very common thing to do, have an index stroke up between each of the chords. That sounds like this. 7, 8, and 9, and. Or 7, 8, and 9, and. There I just have an index stroke on the first string between each thumb stroke down. So that's another possibility. And then the final thing we can do is, what if we just change the technique? So very common for stuff like this, what if we arpeggiate it? Instead of strumming like this, what if we go very similar to the thumb one I did, right? Or I can do a reverse arpeggio, I can go, that was thumb, ring, middle, index. But it's still 7, 8, 9 to our 10, 11, 12. So you see, I'm taking the basic ideas, that basic structure that we just talked about, adding a couple very basic elements of either syncopating or changing this technique or just changing the rhythm entirely, but it's still within the compás. And no matter what you do, if you stay in compás, what you have done is correct. And no one can tell you otherwise. It's just a matter of, do you like how that sounded? If you don't like how it sounded, then you don't have to play it again. If you did like it, then you know that's a really nice phrase that you can put into your soleá. You can keep everything else the same. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stays the same. And then change up your 7, 8, 9. And just with these very basic elements, you can have dozens and dozens of different compases por soleá. Before we end this video, I'm going to play a few variations to demonstrate this concept. First, I'm going to play the two that we demonstrated for you, and then I'm going to change up the 7, 8, 9 by either syncopating or changing the rhythm or changing the technique like how I mentioned earlier. And let's see which types of 7, 8, 9 phrases or falsetto fills I can come up with. And you can also try to copy me as you watch me, and you can determine which ones you like, and you can copy those, or which ones you don't like, you can just ignore them. So here are a few examples, and I'm just going to pick them randomly. So here we go. Variation 1. Here's variation 2. Now I'm going to start changing them. there's a few different ideas and I'm just making them up as I go. As long as we stay in compás, stay within the rhythm of soleá, we have the freedom to change up these beats. Everything else I kept the same for simplicity. Of course, as you learn more variations of beats 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, and 10, 11, 12, you can add those as well. But for now, you can see with very little material, you can come up with many different compases. So play around with them and have fun. And that's all I'll give you for this video. I hope you enjoyed learning about 7/8/9 phrases, and in future videos I will give you more possibilities to use within the 7/8/9 and keep the rest of our compás simple, so that way you have many different variations you can throw into your soleá. And I will see you in the next lesson. Hasta luego.